but Damian Lillard to the Celtics, my gosh, we're talking about lit fireworks for sure.
With the NBA season over for many teams, the time is now to go and start making major moves. Because if you're out of the NBA playoffs, or you didn't even make it to them, then that means that in this season your team wasn't good enough to win at all. And every NBA team wants to go and win it all. There are some big names out there that could be seeing some big changes, like Kemba Walker, Karl Anthony Towns, Kristaps Porzingis, and, in the eyes of some, Damian Lillard. Allow us to show you how this Blazers-Celtics blockbuster trade lands Damian Lillard in Boston. Be sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. 6. The Celtics dealing for Lillard? The Boston Celtics and Portland Trailblazers both are teams who had high aspirations for the 2020-2021 season, but ended up getting eliminated in the opening round of the NBA playoffs. Now each organization faces tough decisions to make. Both teams have already made some switches around, though, that will affect them moving forward. For the Celtics, Danny Ainge decided to step down from being the president of basketball operations, and in shocking fashion, former head coach Brad Stevens is replacing Ainge in the lead front office role. Boston now is searching for its next coach. The Celtics need far more change than just within the leadership of the organization. While Jaylen Brown was sidelined for the NBA playoffs, Jason Tatum did not have nearly enough help, and Boston was comfortably defeated by the Brooklyn Nets as it ended in a 4-1 series defeat. Meanwhile, the Trailblazers had an underwhelming end to their first-round series with the Denver Nuggets. After squandering Damian Lillard's 55-point outing in the team's 2-0 loss in Game 5, Portland was eliminated with a Game 6 defeat and are now back to the drawing board. Will Lillard decide at some point that he values winning over his blind loyalty to staying with one organization? The Trailblazers simply lack the resources to be able to build a legitimate contender around him. At this point, seeking to play elsewhere appears to be the only answer if he were to desire contending. With that being said, let's take a look at NBA trade scenario centered around Damian Lillard that involves the Boston Celtics and Portland Trailblazers. Because if this deal were to happen, it would indeed be a game changer no matter how you look at it. 5. How would the deal work? The Boston Celtics would land Damian Lillard in this blockbuster NBA trade scenario where he would team up with Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. This scenario was made under the context of Lillard seeking a trade from the Portland Trailblazers. To be clear, since that's what it would require for the superstar to be dealt in the first place. Lillard would be sent to the Celtics at the start of his 4-year contract extension and will earn $39.3 million during the 2021-22 season. Despite receiving such a high-paid talent, Boston would be clearing an additional $7.7 million in salary cap spending due to them sending out $47.1 million in salary. With Kemba Walker being included in this deal, the Trailblazers would take on $36 million in salary for the next season from him alone. When factoring in Romeo Langford, $3.8, Robin Williams III, $3.6 million, and Aaron Nesmith, $3.6 million, it adds up fast. The Celtics would need to pick up the final year team options for both Williams III and Langford in order for this to be a possible NBA trade scenario. Both of these decisions are surely going to occur given how the cost is low and they each received playoff minutes. So, just on that standpoint alone, this deal could absolutely work, logistics-wise. But the question that such a deal would raise is, would it actually benefit both teams? 4. Would it help the Celtics? Being able to land a player of Damian Lillard's caliber without giving up either Jason Tatum or Jaylen Brown in a trade scenario is an easy decision. If the Boston Celtics were ever in such a position, they should take advantage immediately without hesitation. The Brooklyn Nets teaming up Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving and then bringing in James Harden to make a lethal Big Three is something that has changed the Eastern Conference. Teams like the Boston Celtics are no longer able to keep up, and now a requirement for explosive scoring exists to make a respectable effort. The best part of this trade scenario for the Celtics is that Damian Lillard's 4-year, $176.3 million contract extension doesn't kick in until the start of the 2021-22 league year. Having him signed through the 2024-25 season would go a long way. When considering Damian Lillard accounts for 35% of the salary cap, the Celtics would need to be savvy with how they fill out the supporting cast around their new Big Three, given the cap restrictions. Moving those NBA draft assets to get the deal done would make that difficult, but that's also when it's up to management to effectively make decisions on the margins of the roster. It'll be a challenge for the new president of operations via Brad Stevens, but if he can pull it off, yeah, that would be a big feather in his cap during the early days of his run. Plus, ironically, He would know better than anyone what the team needs to succeed, and now he can go and get it done. 3. Would the Trailblazers profit from this? Let's be frank here for a sec. There's no reason for the Portland Trailblazers to trade Damiand Lillard unless he were to demand to be moved. Keep that context in mind when evaluating this particular trade because it radically changes the general perception of the return given the decline in leverage for Portland. We are far removed from the period of time when the Celtics could tout their premium NBA draft assets as being the key reason for being able to pull off a trade for an elite talent like Damian Lillard. It's tough to view those picks as valuable when knowing that Boston would have 3 dynamic talents together. Even if Damian Lillard were forcing his way out of town, it's too difficult to take on a bad contract in Kemba Walker as the centerpiece of a trade while not getting back any premium NBA draft picks or young players. Landing Jaylen Brown in this situation would make it far more worthwhile for the Trailblazers, and it would be fair for them to ask for him. If Kemba Walker were to manage to stay healthy and recover his prior form, the perception of this trade scenario would change. He could get a lot of buckets alongside CJ McGollum and keep them competitive. However, Walker's current value needs to be factored in, and it's low, to say the least, given how he played this year and last. Plus, the other factor here is 2. Lillard wants to stay. There was a time in the NBA where moving to another squad outside of an executive decision trade was honestly not possible, likely, or encouraged. In fact, in the early decades of the NBA, the contracts were structured so that you couldn't go and try to make super teams outside of office deals. Obviously, that time has passed. Look at superstars like LeBron James, James Harden, Kevin Durant, and others, and you'll see them hopping from one spot to the next if they feel they can get a title with their new team. James Harden just this season demanded a trade from the Rockets, and it landed him with the Nets, who are vying for a shot at the title. So it's honestly rare that someone wants to stay, but ironically, Damian Lillard is that rarity. He has said multiple times that he wants to remain in Portland and try to win a title there. That's a rare kind of loyalty that is to be appreciated, and thus, it puts teams like the Celtics in doubt for wanting to get him. That's not to say it's impossible to go and get Lillard, but it will be harder than certain other trades in the discussion. 1. Why the Celtics need to push hard. If you're wondering why the Celtics would want to go and push for Damian Lillard or someone of his caliber, it would be because they've been in the running for titles since Brad Stevens arrived in Boston, and yet haven't gotten to the NBA Finals. They went up against teams with big stars like Kyrie Irving and shocking stars like Isaiah Thomas and got to the conference finals 4 times under Stevens, but again, never went to the finals. This year was supposed to be their year under Walker, Brown, and Tatum, but various things conspired against them and it just didn't happen. That's why Ainge left and Stevens is, ironically, in charge. They need to push hard for both the right players and the right coach to try and make the Celtics relevant again and get them to the finals. If for no other reason than the Lakers officially have tied them for most NBA titles, and you know the Celtics don't want that to last. So what do you think? What do you think of this look at the potential landing spot for Damian Lillard? Do you feel that a team is going to be able to make a move for him in order to bolster their team? Would the Celtics honestly be better with Lillard as one of their leading men? Or is Lillard's loyalty to the Trailblazers too much for other teams to overcome? Let us know in the comments below. Be sure to subscribe, and we'll see you next time on the channel.